In collaboration with our executive committee and in resistance to the ongoing attempt at a second redemption, I look forward to protecting and advancing the interests of our section members in this coming year. But now we turn to the awards, and we begin by presenting the Derrick A. Bell Jr. Award, which memorializes the first tenured African American on the Harvard Law School faculty and the godfather of critical race theory. The Derrick A. Bell Jr. Award honors a junior faculty member who, through activism, collegiality, mentoring, scholarship, and teaching, has made an extraordinary contribution to legal education, the legal system, and social justice. Carlos Chapman, Associate Professor of Law at the Washington and Lee School of Law, is this year's awardee, and her colleague, Professor Carrie Martin Shelby, will introduce her.
Thank you. So, not too long ago, during the pre-pandemic days, Carlos and I sat in a restaurant with another Ludi Lido sister following the Chicagoland Junior Scholars Conference at Loyola Law. It was a strange time in Chicago, perhaps a preview of what was to come. The world was awaiting the news as to whether Officer Van Dyke would be found guilty of a range of charges related to his brutal murder of Laquan McDonald. In anticipation of the resulting protests, the entire city shut down. Police were everywhere. There were even police riding through the downtown streets, perched on the horses. And from what I recall, it took us a while to actually find an open restaurant so that we could debrief following the conference. And in reflecting on that moment, I can't help but to take note of the stark juxtaposition to the events of this preceding week, where we witnessed an extremely limited police presence in response to a violent and vicious attack on our democracy. Yet in the midst of that moment, we leaned on each other for support. There we were, finding peace in our joy, relishing in our laughter, and daring to dream of a golden opportunity to lateral to an institution which would fully recognize our talents as business law scholars who courageously infuse our scholarship with social justice issues. The stars aligned. We miraculously ended up at the same institution. Carlos had already been at WNL Law as a visitor upon my arrival. They, of course, had given her an offer to join the faculty permanently. And during the short time that I have been at WNL Law, I have witnessed Professor Carlos Chapman boldly take on the mantle of leadership with charisma and innovation. She infuses her 11 years of practice experience into her teaching by exposing her students to the realities and the rigors of practice. She has served as an unwavering mentor and advocate to countless students who are facing a myriad of challenges. She takes the lead in pushing universities and faculty past their own antiquated limitations through her advocacy work related to diversity and inclusion. She has led efforts to grow and strengthen our own academic circles by further connecting our Ludi and Langston communities. And through it all, she has earned prestigious honors from WNL Law, both with respect to her research and her teaching. So today, we once again collectively navigate crisis after crisis after crisis. I am honored to celebrate the long list of achievements of Professor Carlos Chapman. Let us continue on the same path of recognizing the voices and the hard work of Black women. Because when you give us the space to innovate, when you invite us to every important table, when you allow us to lead, we move mountains. But in the meantime, some of us create our own platforms for leading and build our own tables from which to innovate. Professor Carlos Chapman is without a doubt one of those women. Please join me in celebrating my powerhouse colleague, Professor Carlos Chapman, as she accepts the Derrick Bell Jr. Award.
Thank you so much, Carrie. There are so many people to thank for this award today, literally too many to name, because like most, I have a village of supporters who've helped me to navigate this world. I have also had a lot of luck, both through self-made opportunities and through efforts of others who have helped me to be in the right place at the right time, and most importantly, ready for those opportunities when they arrive. But I have to give a special thanks to my WNL colleague, friend, and my biggest cheerleader, Carrie Martin Shelby, for introducing me and for everything else. Carrie seems to remember more about what I'm doing than what I remember about myself. And I'm immensely grateful to have someone in my life who genuinely values me and everything that I do. As I've given thought to the meaning of this award and the reason I was selected, I've given a lot of thought to how I have gotten here. As my own biggest critic, what I remember most about my own journey to becoming a law professor are all the people who told me I wasn't qualified, that I was too old, I practiced too long, I didn't focus on the right areas of scholarship, that I went to the wrong schools, I didn't have the right degrees or the right champions. Most people I consulted told me that at most, if I was lucky, I could adjunct. I personally choose not to hear negativity. It's my belief that people project their own insecurities and shortcomings onto others. So I ignored all the you can'ts, and I chose instead to say, I will. I'm here today, not just because of my inability to hear the word no, but because with some effort, I was able to find people who agreed with me. Those people said to me what I try to say to aspiring scholars, and even what I say to my aspiring law students and current law students. What you are, what you have, and who you are is enough. I use that principle when I work with the women in Ludi and when I champion for my students on campus and in reference letters. What I tell them is your lack of privilege and even your lack of the quote unquote right credentials might mean that it will take you longer or that you will get there in a different way, but it doesn't mean that you cannot ever get there. I do not allow my own light to be dimmed by those who don't know how to shine, and I choose to never dim anyone else's light. I do not believe in telling anybody, especially a Black person, that they cannot do anything. I do not see myself as a gatekeeper, nor do I view myself as, taking advantage of aspiring lawyers or scholars and using them as a tool for my own climb. Instead, I remember all of the excellence and all of the extraordinary feats that have gotten all of us collectively to where we are today. I remember that the Black gatekeeper is a tool of the master whose job is to guard the door and who receives incremental advances in return for their service. So instead, I choose to be someone who lifts as I climb, who reaches back while looking forward, and who knows that the drive that is imprinted in my own DNA is imprinted in the DNA of others. I do not hold the delusion that I am the smartest or the most talented. I know that instead I am simply less oppressed. And it is my job as someone who has worked my way out from under the weight of oppression to liberate others. Seeing more people of color in the academy, especially Black women, is for me a prize more meaningful than this award. I dream of a world where students see more of themselves at the front of the classroom and where Black women are where they belong in every room, in the front. Creating that world involves making space for those who, while not perfect, while not magical, or while not superstars, are in fact more than enough. Derrick Bell gave us so much: a theory for engaging the realities of our world, a blueprint for overcoming the barriers to our profession, and an example of how to make the path easier for the people who follow. His reach is exponential. Those he lifted have each lifted others, who are now lifting a new generation of lawyers, scholars, judges, and business leaders. As we navigate these unusual circumstances and unprecedented times, I believe we honor Derrick Bell's legacy most by taking advantage of the unusual to advance real change. If we all do the same, helping just one of our students or a mentee, we can continue our exponential reach, making this room bigger than we can even imagine and reshaping our entire profession. I personally plan to think of more simple yet revolutionary ways to keep lifting, remembering that change is not slow if we all work together to make it happen. The pace of change is an affirmative choice, either to act or not to act. It is not a foregone conclusion. While I cannot thank everyone, I would like to highlight a few people who, by simply being who they are and doing what they always do, helped me in this journey. First is Demetria Frank, my BFF from law school, soror, and an honorary member of my family, who insisted that I write a paper, do a FAR form, which I didn't do until the third distribution, and stay in her hotel room. That was the push I needed to get my butt in the chair and start writing. Helen Jenkins, Shelby Moore, and the other women at South Texas and Houston, who read my early drafts, explained the process, and poor Helen, who let me give my first job talk in her office over and over again and never told me how bad it was. Now that I'm on this side, I realize that it's because most people's job talks aren't that great in the first place, and we all pretend like they're good, but that's another discussion for another day. Catherine Smith, who pulled me out of the FAR and called just to offer support. What Catherine has modeled for me is how one should treat juniors and prospective scholars and what we all should do when we have a position with power. And for that, I am forever thankful. Candace Ziert at Stetson, who brought me into her BAT program and taught me how to be a professor who also happens to be a good teacher. I wish everyone in the academy had the opportunity to learn how to be a teacher, and most importantly, how to be an ally from Candace. And last but not least, the women I call my cabinet or board of directors: Eleanor Brown, Angela Nwachi-Willig, Wendy Green, and Shantavia Johnson. I also refer to them as my no committee. I am truly blessed to have this circle of supportive women who help me to be my best self. In conclusion, it is my hope that these times and the legacies of those who have gone before us can serve as an inspiration and a motivation to lift as we climb, to take the opportunity to do with others what has been done for us, and to use what power and status we have to do more. My path is easier thanks to Derrick Bell. It is an honor and a privilege to accept this award and to continue his work.
Congratulations. It's fantastic.